Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, madam.
Good afternoon, madam.
Good afternoon. Very good afternoon. Hope you all are good afternoon. Now, you have already submitted your assignments. I know that, but sad to say that only 33 people had submitted. Any idea why the others did not submit? Because you can get low marks. Now say 30 marks are allocated. You can even fail. You can even get 1 mark, 2 mark, 5 marks. But still, if you make it up in the exam and the group assignment, you can still pass the exam. But if you get absent for one assignment, well, you can't complete the course. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's very, very important to at least attempt something. If you haven't done a full quality job, at least to get half the marks, 25% of the marks for that particular assignment. Even if you had got fail marks, it would not have mattered. But I'm sad to say that 7 of you all did not submit. I don't know the reason. Does anyone have valid reasons which will come under mitigating circumstances? If you go through the handbook. Okay. So anyway, I don't know if you all chose not to. I cannot do anything about it, but just remember that you all may have to repeat the entire individual assignment. Sorry, you will have to again repeat the organizational behavior course. You can't only attempt the individual assignment, in my belief. I'm not sure. You can check with Mr. Ranapura giving your reasons. Mr. Nyunhalle and Mr. Ranapura, those who did not submit can contact them and ask what's the way out. Having said that, now group assignment, individual assignment, I have still not marked, but by next week, I hope I will be able to give you all some feedback. I'm planning to complete it. If I do that, I will give you all feedback next week and release your marks. All right, group assignment has been scheduled for 6th March. You all know that, no? That is next week. Are you all okay with that? Yes, no. I need an answer. Even if not, there's one whole week for you all to start working. But this one, I hope it's not clashing with any other assignment, is it? Earlier, we changed the date because it was clashing with one other subject. In this case, I hope this 6th March submission is not clashing with anything. What do you all say?
We have another 2 submissions on 28th and 1st, ma'am. So we only
Then it is better to have it on the 6th. We'll have this on the 6th then. Because 28th of this month, that is day after tomorrow. Is it?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Now, why I asked you that question is your final exam is scheduled on the 26th of March. Do you all know that?
Yes, ma'am.
You all know that the final exam is on the 26th of March. So now nothing is clashing. No, now you have an assignment day after tomorrow. Then you have another one on the 1st and then another one on the 6th. Can you handle? You're not sure.
If you can give more time, it will be better, ma'am. But I don't know.
What do the others feel? I don't have a problem. Let's make it like this. Is Ajit here? Ajit is the group representative, is he?
Yes,
Ajit, is Ajit here? Okay.
I think he's at work today.
Right. If he is not here, can someone convey this message to him? You all discuss with Ajit, and in case you all want a change, that is, if 7th to be delayed by 1 week, that is 13th March. Please write to Mr. Janthani. You all must take into consideration many facts. One, that you all will be engaged until day after tomorrow, and then first, then you have only 5 more days here. But if we shift it another 1 week, you must remember after that you all have only about 10-13 days for the final exam. If you all are okay with that, I don't have a problem. So if you need any help from us, see, we are all out to go any length only to get you all to submit better quality assignment. Even we don't want to say all 40 people submitted or 6 submitted. That is not our point. We want you all to give good reports. That is why we are taking these student matters into consideration so much and being flexible to make you all submit good assignments. So if you all by any means think that by shifting by 1 week, you all will be able to do a better group assignment, but at the same time, it will not eat into your quality of the final exam, because after that, you all will only have another 2 weeks left. So considering all that, you must let Mr. Neunhaller know. Now, know very fast. Reason being, I had planned to have 8th, 9th session as a mind map to give you all some articles. You all will read and do a small mind map. Each group will upload that mind map, which will be discussed in class. That was my plan for 9th week. But looking at this deadline, I thought it's not fair to ask you all to do the group assignment also on the 6th and then get the mind map also done on the 6th. So I had thought of changing the lecture schedule to have that mind map thing as the last one and to have this assignment on this day. But if you all want to have this postponed to the 10th week, then of course I'll have to bring forward the mind map. What do you all say? Think about it, right? So by tomorrow, you all must contact Mr. Neunhaller with your request in case you don't need a change. And in that case, I'll go on with the current plan. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Right. So whatever it is, let's see what, whenever you have to submit is a different issue. Let's see what you have to do for these group assignments. How many groups are there? 6, is it?
6
or 5? 6 groups are there.
Yes.
Right. Now you're going to assess behavior at your workplace. Critically evaluate the presence of one of the following areas in relation to your organization. So in relation to your own organization, we have given you 3 choices. Equity in the workplace. What is equity? Organizational justice. Whether there is fairness in distribution, fairness in procedures, fairness in interpersonal, interactional justice, we discussed all that thing. So whether there is a burning issue there. Now, if you ask the health workers, they will say no equity, our salaries are so bad, we are striking. Teachers are saying that, right? They are striking. So for them, this equity in the workplace is something really, really serious. Equity is not about comparing my organization and another, but it will be like maybe certain grades of officers, they are being treated very well. We are doing the same amount of work, or our output is the same, but we are not being treated. That kind of. And we discussed this at detail. Equity stemming from Stacey Adams. So whether you want to take that. Then perceptions influencing decision making. Now at various levels, you all have people making decisions. You are making decisions, people above you are making this, above you are also making decisions all the time. Whether perceptions are influencing. Now earlier, last week, I believe, we did about perceptions and decision making. What are the factors that influence decision making and all that kind of thing, the perceiver, the target, the situation. So based on all that, whether decision making is happening differently in your organization, whether that is a burning issue. Or managing a multi-generational workforce is a challenging task or a challenging problem in your organization. So you choose one of these three, not all three, just one. The group discuss together and say which is the one that we can write best and choose the best one. Right, you have chosen. So number one is done. So in the introduction, you will talk about what is equity in the workplace. This paper is about this. And then what is going to be contained in the paper, sections, subsections of the paper assignment. This will talk about equity at customs, this department, whatever. And the paper will define this and then look at reasons for this, the impact of this, and look at and make recommendations to overcome this. And the paper will finish with a conclusion. Something like that is the introduction. So you give the introduction and then you go on. What will you discuss first? Theoretical underpinning for your selected area. So if it is equity, discuss the theoretical underpinning of equity. Now, this is not about your organization. This is about theory, literature. What is equity? So at this point, you define equity. Equity, the concept of equity, how it originated by the research done by Stacey Adams. You can refer to the textbook. You can do more reference on Stacey Adams' equity theory and write certain things. What is this and how when people feel that, you know, they are not treated equally, when they feel that there's favoration, injustice, then there is anger. And then to balance that ratio, what do? They reduce their output because they feel I'm doing more, I can't get more, so let me reduce my input. I'll work less, something like that. Or if people feel guilty that I and he are doing the same thing, but I'm paid much more, this leads to an unpleasant situation, then I can't go and ask to reduce my salary, so I increase my scope of work. So that we had a slide with equations, put all that, take references from your textbook, take references from the other book that we gave, what was that? Luthen's. That is in the supplementary reading list. So give reference to that. Find one or two other articles. At least if you can put 5 references in total, it's beautiful. It's a very good assignment paper if you include at least 5. That should be the standard, right? So discuss a theoretical underpinning and identify key patterns. What is the identification of key patterns? That's what I told. If it is equity, when people, two different people doing the same job, same amount of time, same qualifications and skills, but one is paid higher, the other one is paid less. Then there is this sense of anger. And what does he do? That's a key pattern, or the other way, which is what I just explained. Then, third item, meaningfully link the vision, mission, key strategies, critical success factors, and execution challenges to your discussion. Right. Now, why would this be important in your organization? Because one organization is different to another. So in this particular case, why is this important? Link with your vision, mission. What are we trying to do? To get this, we need to have key strategies, and key critical success factors are there. So maybe because you want to do a certain thing and a certain expertise is required, and one particular person in that same grade is having that capability, perhaps that person has been given an extra allowance, or he has been placed at a higher salary scale, whatever. In that case, you have to identify that. Try to see whether there is a justice. Then that comes under procedural justice. So maybe the organization had a reason to do that. If so, is it covered under procedural justice? Are there policies, procedures written down? Well, if it is written down, there are circulars. Well, people will then not complain. They will accept what to do. Circulars are saying this. So if it is not there, you have to recommend that because of this, until this happens, that there are going to be issues, unhappiness. So you can put it as a recommended key improvement. That this is happening, it's a must to attain the organization's vision, mission, key strategies. Therefore, giving this person an extra salary is important, but it should be included into our procedures, and saying that whoever has this kind of capability will be eligible for this kind of extra allowance or different benefits, whatever. People who are, why we have no now even people who are for the non-executive grades, even overtime payments are different for normal working times and night working times. It's justified. Why should someone ask, I also worked overtime from 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock, but that guy who worked 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock at night got more money? He can't ask that question because it has been specified. In the night, if you work, well, your rate is different. If you come and work on a holiday, it is still different. So like that, but those have to be covered by procedural justice. And thirdly, interactional justice. Is it communicated to the people? Has the treatment of people been just or fair? So those are the things that you have to discuss. Just don't give general statements. Take a few. If you say equity at workplace, take at least 3 examples and discuss these things. That will be good. Now, even perceptions influencing decision making, it's not enough to give just one example. Select at least about 3 instances and say this happened, that happened. So first one, how the perceptions influence the decision maker. This was the reality, what everybody else felt, but this is how it was perceived by the person who took the final decision. That you have to explain, not just one, but at least 3. Then, as usual, we have the key improvements to be given with the IR2 form, in the IR2 format. Issue recommendation, timeline, is it immediate? As I told, I mean, if a procedure is there, you give a different amount of money to someone, but it's not in your procedures. That can be sorted out immediately if it is an occurring practice. But there are certain things which you may have to go up to higher authorities, maybe even bigger ministries to get approval. Then it is maybe mid-term or short-term. So either immediate or short-term or mid-term or long-term. What will be the output, meaning immediate results? What will be the outcome? Outcome will be the long-term impact. So this table is absolutely important. Without this, your assignment will lose a considerable amount of marks. Then there will be some marks given to the report. You must have a conclusion. You must have an introduction. Introduction, I've already told you. Conclusion is similar. What was the issue that was focused on in this assignment or this paper or this report or whatever you may call it, right? And it first looked at this, it identified the reasons, and then it discussed the impacts of this and the challenges in implementation. Whatever, you're writing a summary of what you have already done. And the recommendations were presented through a near-to format like that. So that is your conclusion. Conclusion must be there. Don't bring in any new points into conclusion. Instead, what will you be doing? Only what you have said. Now, don't repeat the same things, but you just summarize. One paragraph is enough for introduction. One paragraph is enough for conclusion, but both must be there. And then there must be, what do you call that? References in the correct format should be there. The subheadings should follow the correct format. First level heading, second level heading, third level heading. Please look at PIM presentation guidelines. So if all those things are there, 10 marks or whatever of the entire report goes for your report writing, formatting, referencing, things like that. Balance 30 will be divided into this, whether the theoretical background given is sound, whether your discussion on how you linked it with the vision, mission, and the challenges are done very correctly, and whether your recommendations are practical, whether they can be implemented, and whether you have identified the correct recommendations. So 3 things. Is that understood, or is there anything you want me to further talk about?
Small thing, ma'am. Is there a word limit?
Word limit. We haven't mentioned here, no? Right. Word limit is not given. So we will stick to about similar, like 15 pages, like 12 to 15 pages. We haven't given anything here, right? But if you exceed, we will not be cutting marks, but don't go less than 12 pages. Because now this is a group work and a lot of people are there to give ideas and all that. Important thing is, first write sound theory. Second, identify 2-3 issues, 3 issues at least, and then link it to the organization, give examples, what is happening, this, first one, and how it is affecting the vision, mission, key strategy, implementation challenges, all that. So I suppose you all can handle that well. So if that is so, can I move on to today's session? Right, share screen. Today's session is on power and influence. A lot of stories coming here, a lot of incidents, very interesting incidents are happening around, and Actually, to tell, this is my favorite session out of the whole lot. So let's see how power is playing a role in our organizations and how people's power is influencing, exerting influence on other people's behaviors. Right. Now, what is the meaning of power? What do you think is power? Anyone who can say what is power? If I have power, if I am powerful, how? Why do you say I am powerful, or your boss is powerful? The husband is powerful, the wife is powerful. Why do you say that?
Your ability to do something?
Ability to do something, right? But why should it be power? Everyone has the ability to do something.
Ability to be done ability to done something to be done.
To be done meaning to get someone to do something.
To get someone to do be done.
Ah, right. Excellent. Right now, if I can get myself to do something, it is not that I'm having power over myself. But let's take somebody else. That is where power comes. You get someone else to do something what you want. If you want your children to study at this particular time, sit at the table at 6 o'clock and study till 9 o'clock or whatever, you can't do it unless you have some power over them. If they don't want to do it, and if you must get them to do it, if you're going to do it, you must have power. You're going to work every day. You're supposed to report at 9 o'clock, say. If you yourself tell yourself, I must go to work on time, I should be there 10 minutes earlier, I should never reach office after 9 o'clock, that is not your power. That is you're only regulating yourself. So that is self-management, self-awareness, self-management, which we learned earlier. But this is, say you don't want to go to work on time, that doesn't matter to you. It's not one of your values, you know, of punctuality is not one of your great values. There's nothing to say what is good and what is wrong. In your view, it's not necessary to go on time. You may think, when I'm there, I should do my work properly. I should finish all the work given to me during that day. But it doesn't matter what time I go. Whatever time I want, I can go, so long as I finish the work given to me. That can be your attitude. But let's say your boss doesn't like you. The admin department, they will not tolerate people walking in and out of office at any time of their whims and fancies. If they say 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock or 5:15 or whatever time is your working hour, then people have to be there at that time. So somebody else in power who's having the ability to make you do things what you don't normally want to do, but that person wants you to do. So power is ability to get somebody else to do what you want. Capacity to control. Ability to get someone else to do something you want done. That is power. Only if you have some kind of power over the other person can you do it. Otherwise, I'm powerless. We'll say, oh, what can I do? My son is not studying, what to do? I have no power over him. My son is not dressing properly, whatever. He's keeping his room very unclean, but still I can't get him to do that because he doesn't listen to me. That means I don't have power over my son to get him to clean up his room. Okay. Ability to make things happen or get things done the way you want is power. So people who have power or people who are powerful can get things done the way they want, not the way the other person wants. Other person's wants and attitudes may be anything, but once you are under the power, under the control of this person, when you go to work, you're under the control of your bosses. If you attend a lecture, maybe you have to sit and listen to your lecturer. Then the lecturer is holding you with her or his power to sit and listen to that class. So certain ability to get things done the way you want. That is power. Now, how does this power come? Is everyone powerful? Why do some people exert power while other people are powerless? You cry and say, oh, I can't do anything about it. No one listens to me. So why is this? So what are the bases of power? French and Raven have identified 5 bases of power. Very interesting and maybe exam worthy. So pay a lot of attention to this. There are 5 types of power bases: coercive power, reward power, legitimate power, expert power, and referent power. So people having either any of these power bases or people having a combination of these are really powerful. So let's see what each of these are. Legitimate power. What is legitimate power? It comes from belief that a person has the right to make demands, expect compliance, and obedience. What is the meaning of that? Now, your boss, by way of holding that position, has a right to demand that you come to work. He gives you some work and he can demand and expect that you complete that work. He can demand, he can expect that you obey him and meet his deadlines and so on. Even, well, at home, a parent's legitimate power is questionable. How much, just because I'm a mother, doesn't mean that I have the legal right to force my children to behave the way I want. Maybe while they are small, they may accept she has legitimate power. They won't use that word, but they identify, okay, she's the mother because she's the mother or because he's the father. We have to do what he says or what she has to say. But as the children grow up, well, that legitimacy of that power base grows smaller and smaller. But at work, as long as somebody is sitting in a particular position, the others have to obey them, expect. Now, supposing in a lecture, if we give a date and say, you have to submit assignment on this date. Now, by my legitimate power of being the resource person, I can expect, I have the right to expect or demand, you have to submit an assignment on the 6th of March. Unless, of course, we change it. That's a separate story. But as it stands, I have the legitimate right to expect it. I have the right to expect compliance, that you will not exceed the Turnitin similarity index of 20, that you will write minimum 12 pages, you will use the PIM's formatting guidelines, all that I have the right to expect. How? Legitimate power. In this case, I am having the legitimate authority to expect that from you. So that is legitimate power. But if I am not your lecturer, next term, or even this term, now you all are having some other course. What's the one before this? You all had the second one. What was that called?
Customs law, ma'am.
Law.
Yeah.
Okay, that law subject, Do I have the legitimate power to force you all to do any exam, any assignment, any group assignment, anything like that? Maybe as a friend, as a counselor, as a mentor, I can advise you all, but I don't have power. I don't have legitimate power. I have nothing to do with that course. Maybe Mr. Neonhalla can, because he is having legitimate power as the program coordinator. He is the coordinator for the entire course. So he can have legitimate power over all the courses you all are going to study under this Master of Business Administration in Customs. So Mr. Neonhalla's legitimate power runs through the course, whereas my legitimate power will cease the time you submit your final exam and I give your marks in the examiner report, done and finished. Next term, you don't have to satisfy my demands, my expectations, expect you to obey and all that sort of thing. I have nothing to do. But Mr. Jonathan Neonhalla will have. So legitimate power comes from your position. Next, reward power results from one person's ability to compensate another for compliance. That is, a person who's able to decide on a reward for you has a power. Now, we know that if you get late all the time, let's say you get late to work all the time, so your boss has the reward power. Sorry, why is he going to give you anything rewarding if you're getting late, right? Other way around. You're working well, you're meeting all your KPIs well, whatever work given to you is very accurately done and so on and so forth. So your boss has the ability to reward you with some bonus. He can make a recommendation, your next promotion, he can make a recommendation, allocating you, nominating you for trainings, he can put in a word. So people who have the ability to reward you have reward power. If you take the home situation, I told you about children. So if they think, okay, it is from my father that I can get a little more pocket money, I need another computer, I need a better phone, it's my father who will be able to give it to me. If they think like that, then they will succumb to that power of the father. Why? Father is holding reward power. Whether legitimate power they recognize or not, even if they say he may be father, but I don't have to do everything what he says. But still, if they feel, okay, he has the reward power, so let me not make him angry with me. If that is there, that person is holding a reward power. Bosses have it. Even in domestic fronts, the domestic maids are there. So they go about obeying the mistress of the house more than others because they know the salaries are paid out or decided by the madam. So each person recognizes who is rewarding me, who has the ability, who has the power to reward me, and they want to please that person. So that person who's holding reward power can get others to work or do things that he or she wants. So that is the reward power that somebody else has. Now, let me talk about after reward. Okay, it would have been better if I had spoken coercive power, nevertheless, right? Expert power. Based on a person's superior skill and knowledge, they have power. What do we mean by this? Some people have some expert knowledge that gives them power. For example, there may be a doctor who's so good in that field, neurosurgeon, orthopedic surgeon, eye surgeon, this one, that one, nutritionist. So those people have the power because everyone is rushing to them. And when people go to them and he gives a decision. It can be a doctor, it can be a lawyer, it can be an engineer, it can be an architect. Expert power. That person says, do this way, you're not going to argue with that person and say, no, I think it's better to do something else. Then he'll say, then you go and do it yourself, don't involve me. So when a person is an expert in an area, people respect that and people will do exactly what that person says. Now, just yesterday, I had a personal experience of this. We are redoing the pantry unit in the house, and when they dismantled the old one, there was a ledge over which the new one has to be placed, and the people who are doing the pantry disagreed on the ledge. They were telling us to take it away. And before breaking, we gave a call to our architect who originally built it, and he was very, very strong in his opinion, saying, I never allow any of my clients to just come and place the pantry cupboard on the floor, because you people will wash it, and when the water touches the wood, it keeps deteriorating. For that reason, I never allow it. And when he said that, and because we respect his expert power, we went by his decision, and now we have told the pantry cupboard people to make adjustments. So when there is expert power, people do rely on that person. Now, this person may not be able to reward you, and he may even not be holding legitimate power. But still, you go to certain people for certain advice. In your organization itself, there'll be people with expert power, regardless of their position. Now, if you take PIE, we are academic faculty, we are teaching. So anyone may think that we are the more important people, but most of us, at least me, and I know of some other, our technical expertise is very, very limited. We are not tech savvy. And we get this second rung of young people who don't have legitimate power. They don't have positions above us. In organization structure, they may be even coming below us. They don't have power to reward us. Those people don't even have a say in how much salary I should get or whatever. But still, we go to them, we listen to them because of their expert power. When it comes to technologically, how to handle it, how to do Zoom, or my computer doesn't work, what is this app, I don't know, can you help me? Expert power. So if they don't help us in that scenario, now just even conducting this Zoom lecture, I just cannot manage on my own without the host. I'll struggle. Maybe I will, but I won't find it that easy. So he has expert power, even though he doesn't have legitimate power, reward power. Cicera sitting here is holding expert power over me. Thank you, Cicera. Right? So that is based on a person's superior skill, not on their position. So that is expert power. Then comes referent power. This is not all that straightforward to understand. What we mean by this is, there are some people, you cannot define that, but you respect them. They may not be the top person, they may not have reward power over you, or they may not be experts, they won't be the top eye surgeon or a big lawyer or anything like that. But there will be certain characteristic of that person drawing you to him. Religious leaders, think about them. They didn't have all this legitimate power and the reward power, but still you feel like going to them, you respect them, people with good values, maturity, understanding, kindness, they have reached a different stage in life, whatever. You have referent power because you find them to be worthy, and they get the respect from others without any of these top three powers. If I must tell you another personal example, my first job, first, I can't call it really first, but in the manufacturing industry, I worked at Milko. At Milko, I was quality assurance manager, whatever, but initially I joined as executive. Then there was this boy, a lab assistant. Towards him, his name was Ratnapala. To date, what I hold is referent power. Because even though I think he may not have even completed his GC O-level, that's why he could never be promoted. He must have been grade 9 qualified or whatever. So he was like a attendant doing manual work where he mixes the milk in the bowsers and washes the test tubes and things like that. But believe me, such a calm, quiet, obedient, everything nice about him. So much so that I used to wish that when my child came, he should have qualities of Ratnapala. Who was Ratnapala? Not the big people. He was only a small person. But by his attractiveness means his worthiness, the way he conducted himself, his value systems. In fact, this particular Ratnapala's mother, he was an only child. His mother died. And when we went for funeral, he had been at work that day and he got the message and he went. And then when we went for funeral, his wife was there. And when she was narrating the whole story about the death of the mother-in-law, we all knew she had been sick for some time. But we said, oh, Ratnapala was not there. No, he was at work, so he wouldn't have known that she was really sick. So the wife said, no, he knew that she was very bad. She had been bad for a long time. But that particular morning, he knew he was very bad. The wife had told, why don't you stay back? Amma doesn't look too good. He had said, I am on early morning duty. If I don't go now, the bowsers that arrive at 6 o'clock, no one is there to unload it. A small job, but if he didn't mix it and unload it, fix the big tubes onto it, the manual work, the milk would be there, the entire bowser load of milk. Maybe it'll get spoiled. Maybe there'll be a delay in the entire day's production, all that. So he took his work that seriously. And he came to work, and of course, the mother died, and then he had to go back. So see, for me, that person I actually respect. And if my sons inherit like that qualities, I'll be a proud mother. So such a person is a referent power. Referent power can be for many reasons, even attractiveness. All these celebrities, they have a referent power. You know, just imagine if Aishwarya Rai walks into your office, all of you all will run to have a look at her and to get her autograph and things like that. So even physical attractiveness, there are some people who are world's best speakers, world champions of public speaking, the famous cricketers, somebody, all of them have referent power. So you rush to them, right? People whom you respect. It's not necessarily legitimate. It's not a big person who can reward you, who can give you expert advice, but for something you really respect those people are having referent power. Final power base, coercive power. This is quite opposite to the reward power. Coercive power comes from a belief that a person can punish others, can reward you if you do well. This is the opposite. If you're coming to work every day late, your colleague, same job, same position, seated next to you, can he punish you? No way. Can he put you on no pay leave? No way. Unless if he indirectly means to scold, to punish, like that. So your bosses have the okay. So I went out, I came back. Anyone can tell me at which point you all lost me? Coercive power?
Yes, ma'am.
So you all heard all about coercive power. So do I hold coercive power over you
Not the entire thing, ma'am. You were in the middle.
in coercive power?
Yes.
Coercive power is somebody who can punish. Now, for example, I have in this particular course coercive power over the students. How I can give you low marks? Mr. Ranapura may have coercive power over you all during the entire MBAC, right? Checking your attendance and not giving you an entrance to sit for exams, things like that. If you come late to work every day, your boss can put you on no pay. Then that means he is having coercive power over you. At home, I was saying, maybe the domestic maids want to do whatever the madam says because madam has coercive power. She'll go on scolding, scolding, shouting, shouting. The children recognize that the mothers have coercive power. Even the husbands may recognize wives have coercive power. So rather than listening to their harangue all the time, better to do what they want. So when people recognize some others can punish them, either by cutting salary and things materially or even scolding. You can punish in so many ways, right? So there are 5 bases of power: legitimate, reward, expert, referent, coercive. So these are the 5 power bases which have been identified by who? French and Raven. Now let's look at another set of power bases, not by French
Madam,
and...
small question.
Yeah, please.
What's the difference between legitimate power and coercive power?
Legitimate power is power in a position. What you asked is, I can understand why you're asking. The person who's having legitimate power also has the reward power and the coercive power. Isn't it? Is that why you're asking? If someone is having that legal position, they can reward you, they can also punish you. So whoever is having legitimate power will definitely have the other two. But somebody can have reward power without legitimate power. Somebody can have coercive power without legitimate power. Now, for example, coercive power. Let's say, now I talked about a boss. You're coming late every day and boss can cut your salary. No pay, half a day, whatever. So that is because of his legitimate power. he exercised coercive power to punish you. But let's say this is a hypothetical case. You have a colleague seated next to you. He doesn't have legitimate power over you. He is not your boss. He is just another person like you. But let's say he's a fighter. He always keeps fighting, shouting. So and so is being treated differently. He is coming late. He is not doing the work, but no one is pulling him up. Why is that? Why is this? He is talking around. So you're irritated with that. So rather than give room for him to go on saying like that, you might sometimes think it's better for me to, avoid and not get in this person's way, not give him reason. If such a situation happens, that person will have coercive power, not legitimate power. Now, if you take a home situation, your next door neighbor doesn't have any legitimate power over you, but they can have coercive power. Why? They can keep fighting with you. They can come and throw their garbage in front of your house. They can come and park, blocking your gate, something like that. So they are punishing you. They are making your life uncomfortable, but they don't have legitimate power. So people who have legitimate power will have automatically reward power and coercive power. Nevertheless, there can be people who have reward power and coercive power without any legitimate power also. Did I answer your question, at least partly?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, any other doubts? Okay. If not, let's move on. Other types of power, I said French and Raven's classification was 5 bases of power. But there are 3 other types of power that have been identified. One is subordination. Are they powerful? Yes, of course. How? Okay, back again, there was a hiccup and we are back. Can you all hear me now? Can you all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Right, so I talked about information power. In the organizations, only certain people hold certain information and that gives them power, like the central bank bond scam. Even if you take manufacturing, everyone doesn't know the formulas. Coca-Cola, it is told only a very few people know the ingredients or the recipe of Coca-Cola. In fact, only about 4 people know that. Others use the syrup which is given to them. They don't know what is there. So those people are powerful. People who are holding information are very powerful. So information also gives people power. They are treated with respect. Okay, now why aren't we moving? Why can this be? Persuasive power. What is persuasive power? Certain people have the ability to persuade others, to influence others. Like, tell me, for example, politicians. You go for all these political rallies, they are talking in such a way that they are persuading you that they are the only salvation in life for you. You vote for me and you're going to be there. You don't vote for me, but vote for the other guy, you're going to be there. So they are persuading you. What about trade unions? They are persuading. Trade union leaders, they are talking vociferously and they are persuading their whole membership to act in a certain way. Let's all go for a massive strike. Extremely sorry for the technical glitches. We'll see how we can put this right. This is the third time we have got interrupted. Apologies. Right. Persuasive power. Certain people have the ability to convince you. Generally, mothers, parents, they have a lot of persuasive power on children. Teachers have persuasive power on students. Bosses have persuasive power, but you can't say every boss. Certain bosses, maybe certain leaders may be weak. They tell you, but they cannot persuade you. Persuasive power is certain people have the ability, others don't have, right? Charisma. Now, this is a little difficult to explain. This may be something connected to that referent power that we talked of earlier. This is a person's personality. Certain people have a charisma. It is attractiveness, their stature, their personality, something divine, something special oozing out. When certain people walk into a room, to a place, you feel their charisma. Smart people. Now, sometimes it may be a person in a very high position, but he's capable, he's educated, he has the skills and the experience and so on, and he can do the job well. But still, he may be a very timid, shy person, a small-made person hiding behind others, not wanting to project himself. So people may not be drawn or attracted like certain people, like magnets with their presence, they draw others. They have good charisma, which is very important in leadership. Charisma is not something you can develop. Charisma is something within you. You can't have an improvement area and write a virtue table for charisma. Charisma doesn't have to be beautiful, nice people, but even those who are simple can have charisma. When people look at them, they feel like following them. Now, Mother Teresa, very charismatic, but she's not the world's beauty, right? For some reason, there's something from them oozing out which attracts everybody towards them as though they were magnets. So very important that people, if they are to exercise power, they should also have charisma. Just imagine the opposite, a country's leader, somebody who's very capable and all that, just hiding behind without any charisma into a lonely place. No, that won't work. This charisma is somewhat similar to the referent power that we were talking of earlier. But it's actually more than that also. It's really deeper than that. Difficult to explain, but people must have this within them. You can't develop. This classification is coming from authors Uckel and Folby, and combining these two, that is 5 earlier, 3 now, 2 groups of power have been identified. Reward, coercive, legitimate, and information in 1, referent, expert, persuasion, and charisma into the 2nd group. And you will see that the first one is position related. As long as you are in that legal position, you are able to give reward, you are able to have coercive power, you have information power. But the moment you are out of the job, you retire, you resign, or you're retrenched or whatever, you're not there anymore, you lose all those powers that were given to that place. But still for all, this set, person-related, referent power, expert power, persuasive power, and charisma is something that you cannot take away from a person, whether that person is holding that job or not. Now, for example, there can be a leader, the topmost person in your own department. So while he was Commissioner General, he would have had legitimate power. He had reward power, coercive power, information power, all that was associated with that particular post. Let's say this person has now retired, but still for all, if he was a very good person who commanded the respect of people, people will be flocking to him even after his retirement. If they had a certain problem, they might go and get his advice, things like that. Referent power. They go to him because they revere him. Revere means they look up, they worship like that. Expert power. The knowledge, his skills, and all his experience, that wealth of knowledge doesn't go away when he is going home after retirement. He is not leaving all that at the institution and going, he's carrying it and going. So that expert power goes with the person. So still for all, whether a person is in his legal position or whether he has gone away, people may seek him for his expert advice, expert power he still holds. Persuasive power, also people, whether you're in a job or otherwise, only difference is whom you are persuading. When you're in the job, you're persuading a set of people. Even later, if you are a person who's very persuasive, he will be doing other things. Even at home, he'll be persuading certain others. Charisma is something you cannot take away from a person. Whatever he's doing, it will stay with him all the time until the end. So these are the 8 types of power. And it will be very useful for you, each one of you, or in a group, sit and identify these powers, how it plays in your own organization. Write down examples, reward power, many examples of who and who has reward power, and what they do with that. Coercive power, legitimate power, and all the others. One person need not have the entire list. Some people may have just one of these. Some people may have more than that. Now, for example, a person with charisma need not have anything else. Expert power again, that person can have only the expert power, nothing else. But there are certain other things which, as you all rightly said, legitimate power comes with reward power, comes with coercive power, perhaps information power as well. So that is about power. If you all have understood that well, now we move on to dependence. What is dependence? What do you all think is dependence? Dependence. When we are small, infants, even in our life cycle, we are dependent on our parents. For what? For everything. For our survival, for our food, for our shelter, for our clothing, for education, everything we are dependent on the parents. Then after some time, we become independent. What is that? We don't depend on our parents. We can look after our own things. We go to work, we manage our things. I'm earning money, I spend for myself. I don't need you, I can manage my money. I'm independent. Dependence, independence. But what is more beautiful is interdependence. Even when we grow up, one cannot say, I'm totally independent. We still have our social needs. We need to be taken care of. We need to be loved. So therefore, we depend on our family, on our parents. And we look after parents, do certain things for them after they age. And they also do something for us in return. What do? They give advice. They give us kindness, they wait for us until we go back, they do various little things and help us bring up children, all that. So it is interdependence. So there is dependence, there's independence, and there is interdependence. Now we are looking at dependence. A person's relationship to another when the other possesses something that the person requires. That is, if I am dependent on Cicera, my host today. Why? Because Cicera possesses the technical capability which I require to carry on this lecture. Now, 3 times I lost the connection. And if Cicera was not here with me, I would have freaked out. I wouldn't have known what to do next. So I'm totally dependent on Cicera to conduct this exam. So that is, he possesses something that I require. Therefore, I am dependent on him. This dependence arises due to 3 factors. Importance. If that requirement is not important, well, I may not be dependent on him. That is, if there is some mode where, you only have to hear me speaking, or let's say what happens. Okay, if we had an in-person class, if all of you came here, not all, at least the 10, 15 people who usually come, okay, 15 people are here, I'm here. In that case, we are not dependent on the internet or the Zoom facilities or any technical assistance, not much. So if it is not important, then of course my dependence on the host is very little. I won't depend on him. So now, because it is very important, technical assistance hosting is very important in a distance virtual class like this, my dependence on Cicera is very high. Scarcity, that also leads to dependence. If there were so many hosts, PIM has about 4 or 5 of these young guys, so there is a scarcity. Few of them are there to help so many lectures. So we are dependent on them. Instead, if we had 20 of them, well, we don't have to be dependent on a particular person. If he's not there, there's another one. If he's not there, there's another one. So if there is a scarcity, we depend. Now, we understand the need of this scarcity very well right now. Why we have gas scarcity, we have this scarcity, we have dollar scarcity. So many scarcities are there, and therefore we are dependent. Now we have 1 or 2 companies that are providing gas for us, cooking fuel. So we are dependent on them because there is a scarcity. If the commodity, if the item was available very freely, then we are not dependent on so and so or so and so. Any place we can get it. Now domestically, ladies will understand, getting domestic servants is a huge problem. We are dependent on them because there's a scarcity of good domestic help. I'm suffering right now. So if we don't have good help, then we cannot come to work and carry on our other work. So it's important. There's a scarcity, but they can find enough work. There's high demand, less supply. Therefore, scarcity, so we are dependent on them. And non-substitutability. If we can substitute that by something else, well, we won't be so dependent. Now, for example, if we were used to having robots to work with, if that was a common, affordable, practical solution, then we won't be so dependent on these domestic maids. If they were not there, there'll be enough robots doing. That is not the case. They are not substitutable. These Uber Eats and things like that, a little bit dependence is less, because if they are not there and we find it so difficult, you order your food, but you can't do that all the time. Therefore, certain things are non-substitutable. Now, if you take even a specific disease, and if there is 1 doctor, 2 doctors who are specialists in a certain type, neurosurgeons, or whichever discipline it may be, then if it is very important, is it important? Cancer surgeons, there's only 2 people in Sri Lanka, let's say, then very important, therefore we depend on them. Whatever conditions they put, I come only at this time, we go and wait for 2 hours, still we wait. Why? We are dependent. It's very important. Our health is important. We are dependent on that doctor. There's scarcity. Only 2 doctors are there in this entire field, and this guy is the best. Scarcity. Therefore, whatever time he comes, we'll spend time in the hospital waiting and waiting and waiting until he comes, because we are dependent on him. Non-substitutable. There is nobody else we can substitute him with. Therefore, we are totally dependent. So dependence is driven by these 3 factors: importance, scarcity, non-substitutability. So we saw power, then we went on to dependence. And now we are joining up power, influence, and authority. Power, we saw it was ability to influence another person. What is influence? What do you all think is influence, unless you all have seen what is written here? What is influence? Anyone who can offer to Tell me what you all think, what is influence? Nobody has any idea on what is influence. Influence is the process affecting the thoughts, behaviors, and feelings of others. Now, I keep talking and talking to you, giving my point of view. If I have persuasive power, if I have even any one of the other powers, coercive power, if I have legitimate power, if I have reward power, persuasive power, I already told, then I also have information power. So with all that, I'm trying to change your way of thinking, change your thoughts, and through that change your behavior and your feelings. So that is, I am influencing you through my power. And what is authority? Authority is the right or the legitimacy to influence another person. Everybody doesn't have authority. Only certain people have the authority to influence another person. How does that come? Now, you have your organization structure and your directions come in that particular route. Somebody from totally somewhere else does not have the right to come and give you work or say, this is how it has to be done. Can you finish this work? You may only undertake if that person has a referent power over you. You respect that person, then you want to do that for him. Then it's a separate story. Then through that referent power, he is having authority to influence you. But he doesn't have the legal right. He's appealing to your feelings and your attitudes. So certain people in the organizational level have authority to, through their legal positions, legitimate power, they have the right to influence other people. Organizational politics is something all of you all would have heard about. What is organizational politics? Organization has its own agenda, its goals, and how to achieve it and go for their improvement. But does everyone follow that route meticulously? No way. Because organizations are made up of humans, politics starts playing in. And what happens? Certain people have their own agendas and they pursue their own agendas, which has nothing to do with the organization's overall goal. They want to go up. I want to get this done. I want to become the next top person. So to get that, you have your own strategies, own plans. And there are people who align towards one person or another person, depending on the power base of these people who Once again, I'm continuing to say sorry, but we have seen the impact of these continuous power interruptions, not power interruptions, or connection interruptions. I'm already I have had one casualty in participants. Right. Continuing. Right. We just saw politics, organizational politics, how every organization is having organizational politics, and employees in organizations. Now, this whole course is about organizational behavior. When politics are rampant in organizations, how do employees behave, or what responses do they show when there is politics? There can be several responses. Decreased job satisfaction. Obviously, when people are having organizational politics, that certain people are being favored, certain bosses have their blue-eyed boys and blue-eyed girls who are their favorites. There are godmothers, godfathers, they get better jobs, better salaries, better opportunities, better training, better placements, quicker promotions, you know, all that. So all that is because of, if that is because of politics outside the usual accepted norms of promotions and rewarding in organization, the procedural justice, if it is outside that, those who are supporting the powerful ones or the ones who are very powerful in organizational politics, then of course in other people it will decrease job satisfaction and say, why should I work so well? Even if I do that, since I am not a hot favorite of the boss, whatever I do will not be recognized, whereas somebody else who's all the time carrying tales to the boss and trying to pump his ego and become a yes man, yes sir, then that person is being treated well. So let me just do some little work and get away. So job satisfaction is decreased. It also increases employees' stress level and anxiety. Why? If there are politics playing, if there are 2-3 different groups with different interests, you're supporting one person, some others are supporting another person, and there is rivalry between those two people, then even at a cafeteria, having lunch, having tea, any other place, people are not free to talk. You don't know whether my talk, whatever I'm saying, will be carried to so and so, and then he will go and do this damage to me, that damage to me. So people are not free. They are full of stress. Increased turnover. If this kind of situation goes on and on, people lose their motivation, people lose their commitment, and they look for the first opportunity to leave the organization. So increased turnover, employee turnover. Reduced performance, definitely you may be just coming for the sake of coming and doing the bare minimum job, and the performance is reduced. So organizational politics can have all these negative effects. Behavioral effects of influence. Now we are coming to important areas. Groupthink, Ash effect, Zimbardo effect, Milgram experiment, and Genovese effect. Now, because people have power, and because these people with power are trying to influence other people at workplace. Now, these happen in personal life also, but I'm confining my discussion to a professional setting. Therefore, let's say in your office, these 5 effects which we are going to discuss now: groupthink, Ash effect, Zimbardo effect, Milgram experiment, and Genovese effect. These 5 effects are happening as behavioral effects of influence. When influence happens because of power of certain people to influence other people, this is how people behave. So very interesting 5 concepts. Let's go into it. First, groupthink. Introduced by Janis 1972, groupthink is a type of thought within a deeply cohesive in-group whose members try to minimize conflict and reach consensus without critically testing, analyzing, and evaluating ideas. In simple terms, let's say you have one unit and then you all want to work together to be friendly and do teamwork and carry on without being an outsider, without being an outcast. So if somebody in that group who's powerful is putting out an idea, this is how we have to do. There is a tendency, if that person is influential, if that person is powerful, he can have any one of those power bases that we talked of. He can simply even have persuasive power. So when he says that there is a possibility that everybody, without critically thinking and analyzing and evaluating different ideas, everyone says yes, yes, yes. If your department has 5 people and if 3 people have already agreed, the others also say, okay, okay. Why? You don't want to fight. You want to avoid a conflict. You want to just simply work peacefully and get a job done. We don't want to be fighting here. So what is important here is cohesiveness, important word. They want to minimize conflict. That's another word. Reach consensus. That is the third. So that is, in order to minimize conflict, no fights, you want to all come to an agreement that is consensus, you take a collective decision without testing, analyzing. So most often that can be a wrong final decision taken. Just because someone said it and you don't want to disagree, you also say yes, even though personally you feel that's not the thing that should be done. But there are people whose personality is they will not go and clash. Why? Otherwise, you'll be branded as a person who always fights. You say anything, she is opposing. She has something to say about everything. She is stopping all the progress. Anything you suggest is opposed by so and so. Very negative personality, not a team player. That kind of criticism is there. And sometimes, most of the times, people don't want to be thought as a troublemaker. So they say, you all want to do it? Okay, okay, I'm also there. We'll do it. So that is groupthink, which is not really the best to happen in an organizational setting. Some examples of foreign history. American foreign policy disasters. Professor has given examples of Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. No one anticipated. Everyone agreed, no, we are quite safe. And the Pearl Harbor was affected. Then Bay of Pigs fiasco. US was trying in many ways to overthrow Fidel Castro. In this particular incident, they even tried to put explosives into the cigar that he uses, and it failed. So wrong decisions taken, some examples are there. You can have many, many wrong examples. Someone says an idea, the boss says, and before that everyone has raised their hands, agreeing. So that is disaster. Cohesiveness versus contradictory views. You don't want to say something negative. Boss has said it. I don't want to say you're wrong. There can be some other way. So therefore, I decide I'll go with the bandwagon, cohesiveness. Right. One example is the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster. A short video clip of which we are going to see. Here what happens, there is a discussion between engineers and administrators about whether to launch the space shuttle. In a particular temperature where this had not been tested, they are going to launch it. The engineers are saying, no, we haven't tested it. The the risks are too high. We should not do it. But then the administrators, the managers, manage to influence their thinking and say, no, we must do it. Nothing is going to go wrong. We have invested too much. We can't take a chance. We can't postpone this anymore. So they were able to persuade. They had persuasion power, and the engineers, without really believing in it, went ahead and gave way. They don't want to fight. They said, all right. So they gave their okay. If you have agreed, you're part of the decision. And it was groupthink. They didn't want to fight with the administrators or the managers. They said yes, and a major disaster happened. Let's watch that very short video now. Sisira, can we have the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster video? The first one.
Yet another costly red faces all around space shuttle launch delay.
Why do group decisions sometimes result in monumental error? What drives groups to make decisions against their better judgment? Using the story of the Space Shuttle Challenger, this video explores the phenomenon of groupthink, in which group members seek unanimous agreement despite their own individual doubts.
Since Flight 17, we know something we didn't know before. The primary O-ring can fail completely.
The shuttle has flown 19 times, and it's come back 19 times. Our job isn't to run around like Chicken Little hollering the sky is falling. It's to keep that shuttle flying.
Dr. James K. Esser identifies the 8 symptoms of groupthink.
When more of these symptoms are present, the likelihood is greater that groupthink has occurred, and therefore the probability is higher that any resulting decision will be unsuccessful, possibly even catastrophic.
The Air Force estimates 29 degrees at launch tomorrow morning.
We have no data on O-rings operating at temperatures this low.
So determining if this extreme cold will affect the O-rings, and if it does, how much is critical.
So our recommendation is not launching until the temperature is at least 53 degrees.
It's my understanding that the solid rocket boosters are qualified by contract for operation between 40 and 90 degrees. Are the solids qualified at 40 degrees or aren't they?
What you're saying sounds like Morton Thiokol is establishing new launch commit criteria the night before a launch. Now, these solid rocket boosters have been operating under very definite specifications. You suddenly want to change them. At that rate, it could be spring before the shuttle would fly. My God, Thiokol, when do you want me to launch? Next April?
Our charts may be inconclusive, our data insufficient, but everything we do have shows we'll be safer launching at 53 degrees or above.
That's clear. That's absolutely clear.
It's time to make a decision. Bob, take off your engineer's hat and put on your management hat.
Does anyone in the loop have a different position?
Even though we had some concerns about the low temperatures, we now recommend proceeding with the launch.
With this powerful video, viewers will learn how to avoid unwanted organizational actions by making decisions that truly reflect a team consensus.
Okay, thank you, Sisira. I hope you all saw the video. And does this remind you of things that would have been happening in your own organizations? Sometimes the majority take a decision which we all don't agree with, but still you keep quiet in the interest of keeping the peace. So you may not want to mention it right now, but please reflect on it and make a note, right? Going forward, the next, now we have seen group effect. Now we come to Ash effect. Ash effect was the result of an experiment conducted by Dr. Solomon Ash. This actually explains a mechanism through which this thing called group think happens. What happens here? Now look at these two strips. There is a line here, and then there is A, there is B, there is C. Now, what Dr. Solomon Ash did was he conducted an experiment where he first shows this one and then asks the others which one is matching the other ones, A, B, or C. What do you all think? Whoever is left in the class, 10 of you all, what do you all think? A, B, or C?
C.
Others? Okay, now supposing 2-3 people in the class said B, and also that is some people who are normally more spoken, who are more familiar with the subject, things like that. If people start saying B, 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 even though you may think it is actually C, there's a possibility for you to think, why is everyone saying B? Maybe they are right, I'm wrong. And there's a possibility that you also may say B. That is what Dr. Solomon Ash proved. What he really did was he conducted an experiment where there was only one person who was the subject meaning the one who was being tested. The other people in the room were already programmed. They were programmed to tell the wrong thing. So what happened is when they told the wrong answer, and when it came to this subject, he hesitated, and he also gave the wrong answer because he didn't want to look like a fool. Maybe everyone is saying that, that's correct. So Solomon's point was proven that people want to do group think. You don't want to stand out as one person, you want to go with a group. Then he modified his experiment a little bit. What he did is he didn't ask people to tell it out loud. He told people to write it and give. In this case, it's not obvious to no one, it's a secret ballot kind of thing. So therefore, the subject was being tested. This time he wrote C and gave, not B. What he really thought was correct, he wrote and gave. That is, only in front of people, you don't want to expose yourself as someone who's standing out alone. But he doesn't mind telling the truth under anonymous conditions. So that was a second finding of Ash. And thirdly, he did another modification. Now he had already set up people and only one person was being tested. So out of these set up persons, he set one person to tell the correct answer. So if you take the same thing, now this subject is also sitting there, and out of the people, everybody said B, 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 but there was one person who said C. And then fearlessly, our subject also now selected C, why there was one other person to support. And then he was looking at that person and there was a bond created between that person. So he thought that person and he think alike. So the next question, that person told the wrong thing and the subject also told the wrong thing. Because he had a buddy there and he will do whatever the buddy thinks is right. So this was Ash effect, and we have a very small video on this experiment. So can we see that, Cicera, now? I only hope I don't lose one more participant by the time I come back after the video.
But an experiment is not a public opinion poll. It examines behavior under the pressure of social forces, as the experiment of Solomon Asch reveals.
The experiment you'll be taking part in today involves the perception of lengths of lines. As you can see here, I have a number of cards, and on each card there are several lines. Your task is a very simple one. You're to look at the line on the left and determine which of the 3 lines on the right is equal to it in length. All right, we'll proceed in this order. You'll give your answer.
Only one of the people in the group is a real subject, the 5th person with the white t-shirt. The others are confederates of the experimenter and have been told to give wrong answers on some of the trials. The experiment begins uneventfully as subjects give their judgments.
2. 2. 2. 2.
2.
3. 3. 3. 3.
But on the 3rd trial, something happens.
2. 2. 2. 2. 2.
The subject denies the evidence of his own eyes and yields to group influence. Asch found subjects went along with the group on 37% of the critical trials. But he found through interviews that they went along with the group for different reasons.
1.
1.
They must be right. There are 4 of them and 1 of me.
1.
This subject's yielding is based on a distortion of his judgment. He genuinely believes that the group is correct.
1.
1.
1.
2.
1. 2. 2.
2.
I know they're wrong, but why should I make waves?
2.
In this case, the subject knows he is right, but goes along to avoid the discomfort of disagreeing with the group. Here, the distortion is at the level of his response.
2.
2.
2.
2.
In the previous experiment, the naive subject stood alone against the group. In this variation, Asch gave the naive subject a partner, here seated in the 3rd position, who also gives the correct response.
1. 1. 2. 1.
2.
With a partner, yielding drops to only 5% of the critical trials compared to 37% without a partner. Although subjects report warmth and good feeling toward the partner, they typically deny that he played a role in their own independence. The partnership variation shows that much of the power of the group came not merely from its numbers, but from the unanimity of its opposition. When that unanimity is punctured, the group's power is greatly reduced. Sometimes we go along with the group because what they say convinces us they are right. This is called informational conformity. But sometimes we conform because we are apprehensive that the group will disapprove if we are deviant. This is called normative conformity. The strength of the normative factor is shown in another variation carried out by Asch. In this variation, the subject is told that because he had arrived late, he would have to write his answers. Subjects in this private response experiment are exposed to the same amount of misleading information as other subjects, but they are immune from any possible criticism by the group.
1.
1.
1.
And this enormously reduces the pressure to conform. Conformity drops by 2/3. Asch's experiment is a classic. It reveals how people will deny what they see and submit to group pressure. It allows us not only to observe conformity, but to study the conditions that increase or reduce its occurrence.
Thank you, Cicera. And good to see everybody back. Okay, so I think this was a very interesting, impressive experiment because we see this happening in life all the time. Sometimes we deny what our senses tell us. My intelligence, my eyes tell this is the correct thing, but still I go with what the majority think that is happening. Does it happen at your own organizations? Please give it a thought. I'm sure it does. So even if we believe something is not right, we go ahead with the group. That is group think, and it's happening in two ways. One is informative conformity. It came in the video. Informative conformity is I'm agreeing with others because I think, or you know better. Therefore, I agree with you. Now, sometimes you may sit in a meeting with your bosses, with people who are experts in that division. You're only a trainee or a newcomer to the department. So you think maybe they know better with their experience and knowledge, they know better than me. Therefore, even though I think this is not the right answer, let me agree with them. That is informative conformity. To some extent, that sorry about it again. And thank you for staying on. Okay, we were looking at two different types of ASH effect. First is informative conformity. That is, I go along with your decision because I truly believe that you all know better than me. The second one is even worse. I know you're wrong. Definitely, I know this is not the right thing, but I don't want to disagree and create a rift between us. I don't want there to be any conflict. The relationship is important within a group. Therefore, I agree. Now, this is a serious thing. This is what happens because of groupthink. So, ASH effect in effect is explaining how groupthink takes place. Okay, moving on to the next very, very important and interesting experiment on human behavior by Professor Philip Zimbardo. I wonder whether any of you have watched the movie called Stanford Prison Experiment. If you haven't, put it in the bucket list, and whenever you find time, please watch this. This movie is all about this experiment, something very serious. Now, this person, Professor Philip Zimbardo, he was testing a theory about human behavior. His thing is, what he was testing was, he believed there is good and bad in each person. Each person is having both evil and good in them. And in certain circumstances, the evil can come out, that people can be converted to do something they normally don't do under certain situations. He wanted to test that. And what did he do? He planned a 2 weeks experiment where he made a paper advertisement saying that he is going to pay for the people, and he asked college students to apply. And definitely college students who are looking for part-time job, they thought it was a good thing. I'm going to be part of an experiment, a research group, why not? And they applied. And in that application, he was even testing out their mental status. So in effect, he took for the experiment people without any mental problem, normal boys. He has taken them and he converted the basement of the Stanford University Psychology Department into a mock prison. Now, say he had taken, I can't remember, 12 people. Half of them were selected as prisoners. Other half were selected as prison guards. So he made use of these prison guards to build up this mock prison so that they feel an ownership. And then they started the drama. He had told the people, yes, we are going to pretend that you all are real prisoners. You have to come and stay in prison for 1 week or 2 weeks, 2 weeks. 2 weeks was the period. And they were to get good money. Happily, they agreed. But what happened was something different. Even to the point that originally, the prisoners were arrested from their homes in a mock police vehicle. That itself, even though the boys who had agreed to be prisoners, who were going to be paid to be acting as prisoners, had anticipated that when police came in the police car with the sirens and put the handcuffs on them and put them onto the vehicle, with children watching, neighborhood watching, then itself something was happening inside them. They really started to feel as if they were criminals, and they were taken in there blindfolded. So they didn't know that they were going into the Stanford University mock prison. They thought they went into actual prison. And these prison guards, a change started taking place in them also. Because they were given the power to do anything with these 6 prisoners for those 2 weeks, they started truly acting in a bad manner and harassing these prisoners as though they were real criminals and these ones were real prison guards. So there was severe harassment, and the prisoners, the boys who were acting as prisoners, after some time even forgot that they were only acting. They started behaving, they started feeling, some had mental breakdowns. This was so severe that the experiment, which was planned for 14 days, had to be abandoned on the 5th day or the 6th day, because the effect it had on the people mentally was traumatic. So eventually it says that people put under certain circumstances will be behaving in very different ways. So let's have a look at this short video. It's a very emotional video, but please bear with us. Okay. Cicera?
Protested against their government, were pro-peace. It all began in West Coast America on a summer's day back in 1971, when college students grew their hair long, protested against their government, were pro-peace and totally anti-authority. Or so we thought, until Philip Zimbardo.
An attempt to see what happens when you... So the Stanford Prison Study very simply is an attempt to see what happens when you put really good people in a bad place. We put an ad in the city newspaper, wanted students for study of prison life, lasting up to 2 weeks. We're going to pay you $15 a day. This is back in 1971. It's pretty good money. And we picked 75 volunteers, gave them a battery of psychological tests, and we picked 24 who on all dimensions were normal and healthy to begin with. And then we did what is critical for all research. We randomly assigned half of them to the role of playing guards or the role of playing prisoners. It's literally like flipping a coin. And then what we did is we told the guards, come down a day early, and we had them pick their own uniform. We had them help set up the prison so they'd feel like it was their prison, and the prisoners were coming into their place. The prisoners, we simply said, wait at home or in the dormitories. Well, what we didn't tell them, which is a little bit of the deception of omission, is that they were arrested by the city police.
Right there, they took me out the door, they put my hands against the car. It was a real cop car, it was a real policeman. They took me to the police station, the basement of the police station.
I had told the policeman to put a blindfold on the prisoners, but since they had never been arrested, they didn't know that doesn't happen. The reason for the blindfold is then my assistants would come, put him in our car, bring him down to our prison, and they'd be in our prison now, blindfolded. The guards would strip them naked, delouse them, pretending that they were lice. It's kind of a degradation ritual. And after the first day, I was about to end it because nothing was happening. But the next day, on the morning of the next day, the prisoners rebelled. And what the guards did, they came to me and said, the prisoners are rebelling, what are we going to do? I said, it's your prison. Whatever you want, I will do it, but you got to tell me. And they said, we have to treat force with force. So they broke down the doors. Stripped the prisoners naked, dragged them out. Some of them, they tied up their feet. They put them in solitary confinement, which was a tiny little hole in a closet, about this big, dark. And they said, at this point, everything but breathing air is a privilege. Food is a privilege, clothes are a privilege, having a bed is a privilege. And so the guards began to say, here are the new rules. And the new rules are, you are dangerous, and we are going to treat you as such. And then it began to escalate. Each day, the level of abuse, aggression, violence against prisoners got more and more extreme. And so the guards changed to become more dominant. And you see, it's all about power. It's the whole institution that empowers the guards, who are the representative of this institution called prison, to do whatever is necessary to prevent prisoners from escaping, maintain law and order.
Keep going. Once I was blind, but now I see. I was.
The way direction it took is having them engage in ever more humiliating tasks, cleaning toilet bowls out with their bare hands, taking their blankets and putting them in dirt and with nettles. And the prisoners had to spend hours taking the nettles out if they wanted to, sleep. And it's essentially saying, we have the power to create a totally arbitrary, mindless environment, and that's the environment you have to live in. So some of the prisoners are now crushed. And in 36 hours, the first kid has an emotional breakdown, meaning crying, screaming, irrational thinking.
I gotta go. To a doctor, anything. No! God damn it!
And we have to release him. In 5 days, we had to release 5 of the prisoners because the situation was so overwhelming. What about the kids who didn't break down? They became zombies. Zombies in the sense that they became almost all mindlessly obedient. Whatever the guards would say, they did. Do this, they did. Do 10 push-ups, do 20 push-ups. Step on him while he's doing a push-up. Tell him he's a bastard.
Prisoner 819 did a bad thing. Prisoner 819 did a bad thing.
It was horrifying to see the kids break down. It was even more horrifying to see these other kids just become mindlessly obedient.
Because of what prisoner 819 did, my cell is a mess. Because of what prisoner 819 did, my cell is a mess.
Again, we have to keep remembering, these are kids who start out being rebels against society, every one of them, and now they are just pawns. They are the puppets that the guards are manipulating. In fact, one of the guards said it was like being a puppeteer.
The guards tested their control over the prisoners by making them write a letter home.
No need to visit, it's 7th heaven. Yours truly, yours truly, your loving son, and put the name there that your mother gave you.
The results were surprising because I did not expect the transformation of good kids into pathological prisoners or abusing guards to occur so quickly and so extremely. That is, we had assumed from all other research, that there would be verbal abuse, they would make fun of them, there would be teasing, there would be bullying, but not this kind of, I would call it creative evil. That is, thinking about ways to demean, degrade, dehumanize other human beings. And the critical thing there in that transformation is becoming the role, or the role becoming you, and suspending your usual morality, your usual way of thinking.
You really become that person once you put on that khaki uniform, you put on the glasses, you take the nightstick, and you act the part.
So what Zimbardo's research demonstrates so dramatically is that situations can affect us more than we think, and can often outweigh individual characteristics. So if we're going to use psychology to try to reduce the possibility for evil, maybe we need to focus more on systems and less on individuals. But should the research ever have been done? After all, the participants suffered real harm.
In hindsight, again, I have mixed feelings about the study. Should it have been done? Well, not if it means suffering of anybody. Would I like my son to have been in that study? No. On the other hand, does it tell us something vital about human nature that has enduring value? There I have to say yes. It's been used in lots of prisons. It's a training device to get people to be sensitized to how easy it is to abuse power. So in that sense, it has widespread enduring value. Therefore, I'm saying, well, I'm glad I did it.
Thank you, Cicera. Thank you for that. And thank you everyone for watching. As I told you, if you all have any opportunity, please watch the entire movie, Stanford Prison Experiment. It's a very emotional, very serious thing. If you noticed one statement made in that interview, Professor Zimbardo was saying, if asked whether I should have conducted this experiment, I have mixed feelings, he said. Mixed feelings is, unexpectedly, these very normal human beings showed extreme characters. The guards, they became evil and they became people who were shamelessly, without thought, inflicting harassment on their own friends. Whereas even the prisoners, they broke down and they started behaving, believing they were prisoners. The way they were treated throughout for 5 days made them believe they were real prisoners. It was a total breakdown. So he says, from that point of view, if you ask whether I would have wanted my son in this experiment, answer is no. So that means his son he didn't want, but other people's sons he was free to experiment with. But he said the study's results threw a lot of light on how humans behave in situations. And that is a very big gift to the body of knowledge. And therefore, he thinks he should have done, he was justified in doing the experiment. So this goes on to say that situations play a great role on our psyche and our personalities much more than we can believe. That people may start acting the roles and good people can turn evil. The same people who were friends in college started treating their friends as though they were real criminals and these ones had charge. So this kind of incident we may see even in our lives several times, that when given chance, people start behaving in different ways. Now just look at this picture. When you all take one look at it, did you all see angels? Or did you all see devils? White colored doves saw angels, black color bats saw devils. Are both seen here. Can anyone state whether you all saw those? When you at once look at it, did you see the angel or did you see the devil? You all did not see anything? Okay, you all didn't see anything, so good. So there are two different things, so just to depict that there are angels and devils, that is the evil and the good in everything. Even within us, there is the evil part, there is the good part, and given the wrong situation, there is a possibility to unleash the evil side. And if it comes out, it is bad. That is what it means. And this particular thing is called the Lucifer effect. Good and evil are largely functions of our contexts and the roles. Depending on the roles, we are either good people or whether we are bad people. Lucifer is an angel, God's favorite angel at one time, and then he went against God and he became a evil devil. So that is what it is, Lucifer effect. Almost all of us are capable of real evil given the proper situation. So realize that we have the ability to become evil. In the very first or the second one, we studied something called a quadrant, where there was one particular thing where something which is unknown even to us. Johari window. There's something unknown to us. Suddenly we do things which we don't know, other people don't know. My God, such a nice person, such a quiet person. We never thought he or she is capable of committing a murder or something like that, but it happens. That is, all of us have the possibility, potential of doing the wrong thing, the evil, and we must be guarding against that. This picture is given here. Many of you might recognize this Manami. In this, what is said is the prince and the princess were from a similar background, good people, good knowledge, good education, and good upbringing, and they were in a good relationship. And then given this situation, what happened? Instead of giving the sword to the prince, the princess gave the sword to the Vedda, the evil one. So in a certain circumstance, she behaved evil. Now look at this. What happens in universities? The ragging. When the new people come, who's putting them through these tortures? It is the senior students. So just 1 year before them, they have gone to university. So people like them are coming into university and they are doing all these unwanted things which are inhumane. So this is the Lucifer effect being shown. The good people, there was hidden evil in them. So this scientist, Stanley Milgram, he brought in some people and subjected them to a mock shock. That is, he wanted to see how obedient will people be. To what level will they be obedient under the influence of your boss or your superior or someone who's trying to influence you, right? The studies, they created a scenario like this. On one side was a learner. He was covered. People on this side could only see, could only hear him, but they could not see him. Now, what happens? There is this experimenter who's supervising this, and there is this teacher. The teacher is the subject. Subject meaning the one who is being tested. Now, what happens? The teacher is supposed to ask a question, a multiple question appears, and the student is supposed to give an answer. Supposing the student's answer is wrong, he is to be punished. And what is the punishment? An electric shock. The teacher has to pull a lever and a shock is given. And if that person shouts, the teacher can hear the shout. And the more he goes on making mistakes, the voltage of the shock goes on increasing. So this is to show or to understand what level will people go on punishing or torturing other people when the other people are suffering. So what is it in human nature? So that is the experiment. And part of it went to see how much will these people be obedient when the supervisor is present, and whether the presence or the absence of the supervisor will influence how much pain they will inflict on another. But of course, remember, it was not a real shock, it was a mock shock. It was all recorded, but the teacher didn't know it was recorded. Teacher is supposed to have thought it's real. So let's watch this video on Milgram experiment. Shishira?
For the heist, so a week after the seminar, I arranged to test the limits of their responsiveness to authority. So, a week ago, I arranged for them to take part in what they now think is a piece of unfilmed academic research at a university, and nothing to do with the show, supposedly looking into the effects of punishment on learning. And they believe now that this is part of their growth. In fact, it was a reenactment of a powerful experiment conducted by Stanley Milgram in 1963 to look at how normal people can commit atrocious acts simply because they're following orders. Milgram's parents were Jewish refugees in World War II, and his pioneering work speaks volumes about the nature of responsibility. It's being filmed with covert cameras. Thank you. They're introduced to an actor pretending to be another participant.
You didn't come from the same room?
No.
Yeah, you don't know each other.
No.
We don't actually know how punishment affects learning.
After a brief introduction, our subjects are tricked into thinking they've chosen their role as teachers in the experiment.
And if you could just tell me what your positions are?
Learner.
Learner and teacher.
Learner. Our subjects observe the learner being instructed by the scientist, who is just another actor.
This electrode is connected to a generator in the second room. We won't be going with the teacher.
Okay.
Just make sure that we have a good contact with the skin, and so it doesn't cause any blistering or burning. Is that comfortable?
That's okay, yeah.
Yeah, we just place these straps around your arms just to avoid any excess movement. Those aren't too tight.
No, that's okay.
No. The teacher will read out some word pairs to you. Blue girl.
The learner is told he's going to be asked a series of memory questions by the teacher. He will have to word pairs and then correctly remember them when offered multiple choices.
If the answer's incorrect, you will receive an electric shock.
The teacher is then taken next door and shown the generator, which ranges from 15 volts all the way up to a lethal 450 volts. The domestic electricity supply in the UK is, of course, 240 volts. Our teachers are given the list of questions and told to increase the voltage each time the learner gets a question wrong. They are then given an example of a low voltage shock.
And try and estimate in volts the amount of shock you feel you're getting.
Okay. Oh, shit.
Do you know how much that was?
Enough.
75. It was actually 45.
Oh my God.
Teacher, begin.
Shoe, horn.
Steam. The point of this test is to see whether the teachers, our subjects, will call a stop to the experiment or continue to the point where they are administering seemingly lethal electric shocks to the victim simply because the scientist is telling them to.
That's correct. The next word is bicycle. The options: tyre, race, helmet, shorts. That's incorrect, so there'll be 120 volts. don't think I want to do this anymore.
If you could continue, please, teacher.
There is. No, I don't think I'm going to do anymore.
The experiment requires you to continue.
Yeah, even so, I don't think I'm going to do anymore.
Correct. According to plan, our accomplice provided many wrong answers. Each protest was coordinated to a particular shock voltage on the generator, and his responses were played via a CD.
That's wrong, 150 volts. The correct answer is Captain Shoe. Cup. That's wrong. 225 volts.
Take it off! I've had enough of this!
He's in a lot of pain,
Continue, please.
but he's not comfortable.
We must continue to the end of the experiment. Whether the learner likes it or not, he has to go on until he's learnt the words correctly.
Okay. Forest. That's wrong, 240 volts. Are you sure this is not causing any lasting damage? He sounds like he's in a lot of pain.
Well, the shocks might be painful, they're not harmful.
What does that mean, though? They're not harmful. Sorry, I'm not getting you. When you say that they might be painful but not harmful.
They cause no long-term damage.
Okay, so what does that mean? That it doesn't leave any scars?
It causes no damage.
That seems very cold and calculated to me. This doesn't seem like a very. Anyway, golden. That's wrong, mate. 300 volts. Staple. The options are diet, jar, balcony, and bowl. Who are we going to answer?
If the learner doesn't answer in a reasonable time, say 4 to 5 seconds, then you have to treat the answer as wrong and follow that procedure.
Did you hear that, learner? Just any response, mate. Come on. Wild guess.
Please continue.
345 volts if you're still with me. I'm sorry. I can't do this, honestly. Can we stop this experiment? Because I can't do this.
If you don't continue, we'll have to discontinue the experiment.
Yeah, okay, fine. That's fine. I'm not going to do this.
Incorrect. 405 volts. Sorry, I don't know, is someone want to check on him or something? It's just he's not making any noise now, and he was before, and well, I'm quite happy to go on, but I'm a bit worried about...
If you would continue.
Yeah, I'm just a bit worried because he was... Like, he was, like, complaining before about the...
But no harm will come to him.
But he's not making any noise now.
It's essential that we continue with the experiment.
Balcony. Incorrect. 450 volts. You promise he's not... It won't...
Please continue with the procedure.
You said it hurts, but it's...
Okay, thank you very much. And what that experiment showed us was, even though when people knew that they were inflicting pain on others, they continued to obey orders. This is what the experiment was about to test. Will people go on obeying even if they bring about harm to other people? And the results are shocking. 65% of the tests went to the full 450 volt shocks. Even though they heard shouts from the other side, the people seemed to faint, but still they went on even beyond danger, severe shock. They went on obeying. They didn't worry about the effect. The conclusion is ordinary people will follow orders even if the result produces great suffering in innocent others. Does it apply to you at work? Does it apply to people in HR? The bigger one says, sack them, this, that, and the other, and heartlessly they go and do it. So people will obey. For two reasons. There are two effects. Presence of the experimenter just there in that room created obedience. When he left the room, the obedience dropped to 21%. What does that show? The same thing happens in classrooms, offices, factory floors. When the supervisor, when the boss is around, everyone is working very hard. That is surveillance. When there is supervision, people work. When the supervision is not there, obedience drops. Most of the cameras, the surveillance cameras are not functioning, but their mere presence makes people think I'm being observed and they start acting properly. There's another thing called buffer effect. The people will go on acting so long as they don't have to see the effect. If the teacher was told to, without pulling a lever from the other side and not seeing the person, if she or he had been told to go and inflict that shock personally, then they wouldn't have done it. That is, when people have a buffer between them and what is really affected, the obedience is high. If they really have to see the suffering, well, the obedience may be low. For example, most of the organizations, the big boss will take a decision to terminate so-and-so. But he will not be going and giving the letter. There'll be a buffer who the HR will be told, go and give the letter. So the big boss who made that decision doesn't firsthand go and see the people who are being given the punishment, giving the walk away, who will cry and sob and say, how am I to live hereafter, things like that. So as long as there is a buffer, for example, we may not want to, if we all eat chicken, most of us, so we don't want to go to a place and see the chicken being butchered then and there and then given to us. We don't want to see that neck being cut and the blood oozing out. Then we feel really guilty to eat. But if it is already killed, peeled, nicely sliced and put into packs, we have no problem about bringing it and cooking and having a nice meal and enjoying it. Why? There was a buffer. We didn't see that suffering. So if people directly see, if there is direct interaction between the person who is inflicting the pain and the innocent one who's actually suffering, the obedience level will differ. If there is direct contact, obedience will be less. This is what it says. And this is a depiction of Anguliwala, who just went about obeying and went around collecting thumbs of people in order to go and marry the daughter of his teacher. Until he met Buddha, he went on doing that. This story is well known. And the very last effect, very last one, Genovese effect. There was this girl called Kitty Genovese in New York, 1964. She was raped and murdered. This happened, this rape and murder took a half an hour. 38 people had been watching, or 37, but not one person came to her assistance. All were frozen. No one called the police. This is called the unresponsive bystander effect or Genovese effect. Does it happen in organizations? Yes, it does. Unless it is a trade union, unionized organization, something bad happens to one person, nobody else speaks about it. Why? You don't want to defend that person and get into bad books of your boss. So you will watch until that person suffers. That is Genovese effect or bystander effect. This movie, a Chinese movie, Bus 44, short film. If you all get a chance ever, please play that also. This is also another very good example illustrating Genovese effect. So we had all these 5 effects: groupthink, Ash effect, Zimbardo, Milgram had 2, surveillance and buffer, and Genovese. So we come to the end of it. And in the next class, now this is very important, because you all wanted a change in the group assignment, next week I will take it as the mind map. So I will send you all an email on that. So I will assign an article to each group. Please read that. And before the next class, you will have to upload it into a folder I will provide. And in the class, one person from each group will have to present their mind map. In addition, we'll take this table as well. These 5, 6 effects and what it means and the key applications. So with that, we finish today's class. Thank you to the 8 people who have remained. In fact, I didn't exceed by 15 minutes. You will know that I started late because you all had overshot the other class. Okay, thank you very much. And I'll see you at the next session, which will be the 9th session. Thank you.